Hello YouTube and welcome to this video based on the unique civilization bonuses in the Age of Empires 3 Definitive Edition game. Now each civilization in the game has its own unique bonus and we are going to go through these in this video to maybe help you learn which civilization you would like to play, and if you do play that civilization, what bonus is unique to them and what advantages they have in the game. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So where do we start? Well, we start with the British, because they are at the top of the list in the skirmish screen and for no other reason. The British have one of the most powerful civilization bonuses in the game. In my opinion, you can see here that I have the cheat on. By the way, I'm going to have the cheat on throughout this video, so buildings don't normally build this quickly. XP doesn't normally come in this quickly, and normally you don't end up with 10,000 of each resource randomly, but I've got cheats on just because it helps me to demonstrate the bonuses easier than if I played through at normal time. So as you can see here, the British civilization bonus, get my tongue in a twist, is that every house they build, or manor houses as they're called with the British, they spawn a settler, and this allows them to build up a really strong economy early on. Because if you sort of abuse this bonus, or at least make the most of it, then you're getting 20 free settlers, and if you keep your town centre going and you build these manors as quickly as possible in a game, then you will have far more villagers than your opponent. And as such, you will have a bigger economy and you will be able to beat them pretty easily. So next on the in-game list was the Chinese, who have some interesting bonuses. You can see here that they start with a goat, which gives you a little bit of food early on. As you can see, I'm just putting the cheat on here. Now the Chinese are an Asian civ, and they age up with wonders. Now the Chinese civilization bonus is that they train banner armies in groups rather than individual units. As you can see here, if I make a war academy, their version of a barracks, they also get cavalry out of this instead of just infantry, so you don't have to build a separate stable. They also get villages, as you can see coming up here, the Chinese. So a village is like a house, except settlers can garrison inside them. And if you click the upgrades, as I'm doing here, then you can get up to 220 population, which is 10% greater than any other civ. So if we look at the banner armies, you look here, I'm training one of the banner armies. And the good thing about banner armies is that the units complement each other. So you build one banner army, and you're getting usually something that can kill infantry and usually something that can kill cavalry. So if I just kill all these units and I make some more, you can see we've got 3 crossbowmen, a Chuko Nu, and we have, is it 3 pikes or 2 pikes? It's 3 pikes. So you get 3 crossbowmen and 3 pikes. So that's anti-infantry and anti-cavalry. So you can see some more of the banner armies here, but that is their main bonus, is that they train banner armies, they get villages, and they can get 220 population. Their explorer can also train disciples, and that's just another example of a banner army. You can see there they've got the 3 anti-cavalry units and the 3 skirmishers. So the Inca are in some way like the British in that they get a house which gives them a benefit, but in this case it's the Kanja house which generates food for them. So they don't get any free villagers, they don't get anything free that's tangible as such, but they do get free food from these houses. So it's not as strong as the British boom, but it does help their economy tick along nonetheless. They also get free Chasqui with every age, as you can see here, which is quite a quick unit which you can use to scout around the map. And they can also build tambos, which are the Inca version of a trading post, which have a small attack which can help to fend off enemy units. So one of the Inca's military buildings, the Kalanka, you can garrison units inside of these, which is unique to this civilization. You can only garrison so many, as you can see. I wasn't sure how many you could garrison, and it's only a handful. I've not played that much of the Inca, so I wasn't sure, but it looks like you can hide maybe 5 units in there. Maybe 10 by the looks of it. But this is a bonus unique to the Inca. Normally you can hide villages inside buildings, certain buildings, but with the Inca you can also put military units in there, as you can see here. Now if you want to hide even more of your units inside buildings, then the Inca can also do this in a building called the Stronghold, which is built by the Explorer. And you can see now the building's up, you can put them all in and the attack increases as you put them inside. And given that it has quite a high hit points, this is quite a good thing to do if you're on the defense. Now another civilization bonus or unique bonus of the Inca is that they can train priestesses from their fire pit. And these allow you to convert enemy units. So you can see the priestesses here if we just take them off the fire pit. That's one thing that they can do, is run around the fire pit, but what we want to try and do is get them to convert an enemy. So we're going to chase after this native scout. Okay, so I'm not sure if you can actually do the native scout, so we're going to go look for something else instead. And here we find a bear. So you can see here that we have actually converted a bear. Now you can do this with human enemies, but in this case I simply couldn't be bothered to wait for one, so I just thought I'd show you it with a bear. So on to Sweden, a controversial new civilization with the Age of Empires 3 Definitive Edition game. Now their civ bonus is one of the strongest, like the British and like the Inca. It's an economic house bonus, but in this case torps allow you to gather where the Incan cancha houses generate food. Torps allow you to gather resources in the vicinity of the torp, so whether this is hunts or whether it's coin mines or whether it's herdable animals as we see here, or whether it's trees. So if we just stick down one torp on the mine there and we stick down one torp on the trees there, you can see that once these build, they spawn a berry bush and they start collecting that food. If we kill that cow there next to that torp, then that torp will start collecting the cow. You see that torp there next to the trees, it will start collecting the trees. You can usually fit 4 or 5 torps around a mine and it'll start collecting the mine. So once you've got sort of 20 of these up, like with the British and the settlers spawning, it snowballs and your economy is incredibly strong. I'm not sure who technically has the stronger boom, the Swedish or the British, but it's pretty close and they're both pretty strong. Swedish is possibly slightly more difficult for a newer player because you have to make sure that the torps are placed in the right place, whereas with the British manors you get a settler spawning with the build and it doesn't matter where it's placed, you're going to get the settler nevertheless, whereas torps have to be placed kind of strategically and you have to kill animals around them to make sure that the torp can pick up the resources from the small vicinity in which they can do. So another civilization bonus of the Swedish is that they can train Jaegers and Black Riders from their taverns, which are 2 of the strongest mercenary units in the game. Mercenary units are also cheaper and they are quicker to arrive, and also the Swedish get access to the advanced arsenal for free, which is usually a card that you have to send from the home city. So Jaegers and Black Riders, they're just like skirmishers and dragoons. But they're a potent combo because you can take out artillery, you can take out cavalry, you can take out heavy infantry. Light infantry is the only thing that you really struggle with these two, although Jaegers are a powerful form of light infantry in themselves. Once you've sent those mercenary cards as well, you can train Jaegers from the barracks and you can train Black Riders from a stable. But this build does make the Swedes very, very coin heavy. So on to the next civilization, and that is the Dutch. The Dutch are probably the civilization that I play the most at the minute. In fact, they're definitely the civilization that I play the most at the minute. In fact, if you look onto Aussie Drongo's YouTube channel, probably the premier Age of Empires 3 YouTuber at the moment, you will actually see a game of me. I'll probably link that in the description actually. You'll see a game of me playing the Dutch. So I do play the Dutch quite a lot. And they do have some interesting civilization bonuses, probably one of the most unique European civilizations. So the Dutch's villages, they cost coin instead of food. The Dutch villages do have a boosted gather rate on coin compared to other civilizations to offset this, but the settlers cost 100 coin instead of 100 food as they do for most other civilizations, and you can only build 50 of them, which is interesting. And you might be thinking, well, if you can only build 50 Dutch settlers, then that means that you only have half of the eco of other civilizations. Well, actually no, that is not the case, because the Dutch can build banks. Banks cost 350 food and they cost 350 wood, and they generate coin automatically, passively, for the Dutch, and they do this constantly. So a bank's worth about 4 Dutch villages, and they produce coin constantly and automatically. They've got really high hit points, and they are very difficult to kill as a result. The Dutch also start the game with an envoy unit, which is kind of like a really slow scout. It's not as good as the French scout, and the native scouts that you could pick up on the map, but it's an advantage nevertheless. It's got quite good line of sight, and you can kind of move it around the map in Age 1, and it helps you out in Age 1 and beyond that as well. So on to the French next. Now the French's main civilization bonus. The French are quite a simple civilization, really. Many people say that the French are the kind of base civilization. If you're going to learn a civilization in Age of Empires 3, then this would be the one that you go to. Their main bonus, it's a strong one, is that their villages cost 120 food, but they gather quicker, and they have much higher hit points, and they have a ranged resist instead of a melee resist. This makes them slightly weaker to melee attacks than normal settlers, but against ranged attacks it means that they're very strong, and in fact it means that you can kind of use them as an auxiliary force as well if you're ever defending and you're in sort of dire need. Like the Dutch, they also start with a scout, but they start with a native scout instead of an envoy, and the native scout is far superior. He's quicker, and he can also go in stealth mode, i.e. he can go invisible. You can see here that the Corps de Bois, as they're called, if you get the settler upgrades, then they really do become sort of semi-viable military units, so they're much stronger than European settlers. So on to the Germans, another European civilization and another change in settlers. So Germans, instead of starting with 6 settlers, they start with 3 settler wagons. Now, 1 settler wagon is worth 2 villages. So they start with 6 villages essentially, but in the form of 3 wagons. They do train settlers as normal from the town centre, so they don't train settler wagons from the town centre, but all of their villages' shipments are wagons, so that's the main difference for the Germans. They also can send a card where they can train settler wagons from mills, but on the whole, the kind of villager situation is not that different from the units. But where they do differ is that with almost every shipment after the first stage, they get free Uhlans, which are their unique unit. They're kind of like Hussars, but they have higher attack and lower hit points, and they are cheaper than Hussars as well. They cost 100 coin and 50 food off the top of my head. And this makes it quite easy as the Germans to build up a mass of Uhlans, because with every Age 2 shipment, or almost every Age 2 shipment, you get 2. With every Age 3 shipment, you get 3. And with every Age 4 shipment, you get 4. So if you kind of add that up over a period of time, then you're sort of getting 10, maybe 12 free Uhlans, which is good. Also, it means that you get the 2 free straight away in Age 2, and you can start raiding straight away. So you can see here I'm sending in some shipments, and we're getting the 8 crossbows there, but we're also getting the 2 free Uhlans. And obviously this is exaggerated because I've got the cheats on, but you can see kind of how you can build up a really quick mass of Uhlans there just via shipments. You don't necessarily have to make any, because you'll get sort of 8 to 10 just from your shipments. So next on to India, who are an Asian civilization, and you can see immediately that they start with 2 explorers. They're very different from the European explorers, but you do start with 2. They're quite weak, but you do have 2, so that kind of offsets that a little bit. But the main change with the Indians is that their villages cost 100 wood. They do start with some wood upgrades from the market to kind of offset that, because wood is the slowest gathering resource. But the villages do cost wood, which makes for some interesting macro for India compared to other civilizations. With India, you don't get villager shipments from the home city as such, but almost every shipment, as you can see here, after Age 1, sends +1 villager with the shipment. Not all, but most of them do. You can see there's plenty of examples where they do. Most of them do, but some of them don't, so you just have to keep an eye on that. But it does build up over the time, but it's kind of like a slow build up rather than if you sort of ship in 5 at once. But of course, when you get the free 1 villager, you're also getting the whole rest of the shipment as well. And the reason I chose this map to demonstrate the Indians is that there are lots of cows, or maybe yaks on this map, I can't remember. I think they're yaks. India can't kill these and take them for food, but what these do is they provide experience. So if we speed the game up, we've put the speed cheat on, you can see, obviously this is exaggerated because the speed cheat is on, but they provide a steady stream of experience. So if you can get quite a lot of livestock built up early with the Indians, then it really does build up and they can become quite strong. On this map in particular, they are strong. You can see with me sending these shipments here that you get a free villager with everyone. Now you have to be careful, obviously you can see the aggro fort there. You don't want to be sending your villagers sort of forward to that fort where they might get killed by the enemy, but you do get a free one with every shipment. The Japanese divide opinion. Some people love them, most people hate them, and the main reason for that is because their villagers can't hunt. This might sound like a huge disadvantage, but they do get free berries at the start. I'm just about to make a cherry orchard here, and if this map didn't have those berries there, they would have a second cherry orchard. Now what this does mean is that their villagers are incredibly difficult to raid. The main time you will find your villagers being raided is if they're out on hunts that are far away on the map. Now Japan are never going to be doing that because they are always on berries, which are, if you know what you're doing, are always going to be close to your town centre, so it's very difficult to raid Japan because of this. Another one of their main bonuses is kind of similar to the British in that it's an economic house. You can see here that the shrine grants one of three resources, or one of the three resources. You can choose whether it's food, wood or coin. And you can see the difference where if you have a shrine that just sits by itself compared to if you have a shrine that attracts animals, and that's what shrines do. They attract herds towards them. So if you have a shrine and you pop it down in the middle of a herd, then this will boost the amount of resources that it's going to put into your stockpile. So what you want to be doing with these shrines is dotting them around the map next to every single herd. And as I say, when you put your shrines next to the herd, it will start generating more resources, significantly more resources than if you just put it down randomly. Shrines boost resources even more if the animals are herdable animals, i.e. yaks. Obviously Japan can't kill these and take the food because they can't do that with any animal. But if you use herdable animals instead of wild herd animals, then they boost the resources even further. You can see here on this shrine, compared to the other one, that it does boost it. It does boost it further, having the herdable animals rather than the wild animals. Next up, the Ottomans, who back in the day were one of, if not the most powerful civilization by far. And they're not quite as strong now, particularly at the top level. Sort of at the mid-level they are pretty strong, and at the lower level they're quite strong as well still. The reason for that is because of their civilization bonus, and that is that you don't have to train villagers with them because they train automatically. Now they do train slowly from the town centre, but it means that you don't have to think about it, they just do it in the background. You can see here that the mosque has improvements where you can get settlers to train more quickly. Obviously I've got the cheat on here, so they're coming out far more quickly than they would in a normal game. But you can get improvements at the mosque, firstly because the villages are capped at 25, so you have to get one to move it up and then up again and then up again, all the way up to 99. And there are improvements to make them train quicker as well, but at the lower level, it's possibly not the best way to learn the game because you're never going to learn to train villagers constantly, which is one of the main things that you should be doing in Age of Empires 3, but at the lower level it does mean that it's a lot easier for players because they don't have to think about training villagers. It's going to happen automatically. You can see here now I've turned the cheats off and I'm building a few houses just to demonstrate how quickly the villagers build when you've got all the upgrades. It's around the same speed as a standard European villager would. But at first, Ottoman villagers, sort of in Age 1, Age 2, they train automatically and they're free, but they are very slow. So next up is the Portuguese, and the thing that you might have immediately noticed if you've got a keen eye is that they start with 7 villagers compared to the usual 6 that most civilizations start with. But the main civilization bonus of the Portuguese is that they get a free covered wagon with every age. They don't get villager shipments, which slows them down early on, but they do get a free covered wagon with every age, as you can see here. Obviously we've got the cheats on, so we've got 4 up pretty quickly, but if you do Fast Fortress, then it means that you can get 3 covered wagons really quickly, and if you Fast Industrial, then you can get 4 town centres up really quickly. So it means got, because they don't get villager shipments, they've got sort of a slow, delayed boom. But it does make them very strong, sort of mid to late game. But the lack of villager shipments does make them a little bit weaker in the early game. So the Russians are quite an interesting one, I think, from a sort of historical point of view, in that their bonus is that they train infantry and villagers in groups, which is to kind of signify the fact that they're all about numbers and quantity over quality, as it were. So 3 villagers for the Russians cost 270 food, which is obviously a slight discount. Usually it would be 300. Their cavalry and their artillery does train as normal, but you can see here that their infantry, you can get 10 strelets at once. You can get 5 musketeers at once, and their musketeers and halberdiers, they are weaker than their counterparts from other civilizations. They're cheaper. They're training groups of 5, but they are weaker. You can get a couple of cards with the Russians as well. Usually you can only get 1 card to make infantry train quicker, but the Russians can get 2. Spain, like France, a pretty standard civilization. The bonus of this civ is that they get shipments far quicker than other civilizations, which means that you get your first shipment quicker, and then that kind of snowballs. And it means if you kind of abuse this and you take a trading post, or you take a couple of trading posts and get a church to make sure that your experience goes up as much as possible, then you can really play on this advantage, and you can get several shipments quickly, and you can send them back to back to back, and it can become really powerful, particularly in a fast fortress situation where you're going quickly to the 3rd age. You get to the 3rd age, and then you can send age 3 shipments back to back to back while your opponent is possibly still in age 2 or just age themselves. So it is usually advisable with Spain on maps where you can to get a trading post, because, as I say, this will accentuate the civ bonus, which is getting experience faster and shipments faster. So the first of 3 native civilizations, the Aztecs. So the way that the Aztecs differ compared to the other native civilizations is that they get a warrior priest, which they can put onto their fire pit. It's no longer called a fire pit, is it? I can't remember what it's called. Community plaza. That's it now, because we're very politically correct. So they get warrior priests, and they can train warrior priests from the community plaza. And a warrior priest is worth 2 villagers, and they can get 10, and they don't take up population space. So where with the Haudenosaunee and the Lakota, you have to put villagers onto the community plaza, which means that you're sacrificing resources because they're not gathering while they're on there. With the Aztecs, you put the warrior priest on, and he activates the community plaza for you, and you can get as many as 10, as I say, so this can be quite a powerful sort of boom strategy with the Aztecs. They also start the game with an Eagle Scout, which is not a particularly strong civilization bonus, but it does help them in Age 1, which was an area before that the recent change, the recent Eagle Scout was brought in. They were quite weak in Age 1. You can see here I'm just putting all of these villages on just to show you how you can get warrior priests from the fire pit. Spawns a warrior priest every 30 odd seconds. Unfortunately, the speed cheat doesn't seem to work on that, but you can get them from the community plaza. So the next native civilization is the Haudenosaunee, easy for you to say, and their civilization bonus is that they start with builder travailleurs, and builder travailleurs are kind of a constant theme throughout the age up bonuses with the Haudenosaunee, which it also means that they've got a few interesting starts, because you can make a dock, you can make a farm which gives you 80 experience, as we've just seen there, or you could just make the standard longhouse, but it does make for quite an interesting set of starts with the Haudenosaunee. As you can see here, I'm going to put down the travaux and make a dock. So I mean, particularly with the wood treasuring base here, it means that you can put that down, and you can sort of start a mini water boom straight away, which is pretty much the only civilization you can do that with, really. So finally, onto the USA, the most confusing civilization in the Age of Empires 3 Definitive Edition by an absolute mile. I've never actually played the USA before, but I am somewhat aware of their unique bonuses, so we'll go through those a bit. So the main bonus for the USA is that their card system is different, and specifically they unlock 2 new cards every age, and it depends who you age up with. They also get experience crates, as you can see here at the start. They're the only civilization who get experience crates. This gives them quite a quick start, although many players would say that they are one of the slowest civilizations to start in Age of Empires 3. They've come into the game recently and they're not one of the strongest, but they do have some fun, unique bonuses. You can see here that the general, he can't build town centres, but he can build forts. Forts are quite an important part of the United States strategy in Age of Empires. The United States can always get 2 factories in Age 4. In fact, with a particular age-up politician, they can get 1 factory in Age 3, though they can't get the upgrades and they can't get heavy cannons. Another thing that the US can do, as you can see here, they can call Minutemen. They can call these many times, and you can see that it's got quite a slow cooldown. And the difference between these Minutemen and standard Minutemen is that these will only go down to 100 HP, so they are kind of viable units, where normal Minutemen will eventually reduce to 1 hit point and can be killed by anything in 1 hit. These ones go down to 100. You can see here, and I mean, I haven't gone through all these. It's probably an entire video all by itself, but you can see just before that, when you choose to age up with the US, every single age up option has 2 unique different cards, and as I say, that is a whole other video in itself. In fact, Aussie Drongo has done one on it, so I will link that in the description below. It's probably worth having a look at that, because I don't actually know that much about the specifics of the US. I just know that each of the age ups gives you the option to go up with 2 different extra cards in your deck. And you can see here now that we have aged up, you get these 2 cards at the top in a separate section to what you would normally have from other civs. They get their own section for these special cards, and it means that by the time that you are advanced through the game, that you can actually have 30 cards in your deck. You can see the New Hampshire one there. That's the one. It's not the one I clicked on, but if you saw, then that was the one where you can get your factory in Age 3. Although, as I say, you can't get any of the factory upgrades until Age 4, and you can't produce heavy cannons until Age 4. But it's still worth, I think, in the region of 10 to maybe 11 villages. You can see here that the general is building forts. Obviously, they can't build town centres, but they can build forts, and forts are an important part of the US strategy. The general can also put a flag down. I don't think I put it down here, but the flag improves stats slightly and can also help things to train quicker and buildings to build quicker. You can see here there's just some more examples. The US is so in depth. Every single age up gives 2 separate cards, and as I've said a couple of times already, it really is an entire video by itself. You can see now that we're in Age 4 that they do get those 2 factories.
Orders? Yes, sir. Hello. I'll do it.
And I think if we just go back to here, just to show you, because it is so powerful, and it was one of the most talked about features of the US. If we go back and show and go up to Age 3 with New Hampshire, then you can get that factory shipment. If we just take the XP crates here, which the XP crates they get with every age, by the way. So if we get the shipment, we go in, and you can see there's a factory in Age 3. So if we pop that up, and you can see you can get the food, you can get the wood, you can get the coin, but you can't get any of the other upgrades until you reach Age 4. So on to the final civilization, the Lakota, and their civilization bonus for keen-eyed viewers is immediately obvious, and that is that they don't need houses because they automatically have 2 population. 2 population? Obviously I mean 200 population. Now it's not a bonus as such, but they also cannot build walls until Age 4. I believe they never used to be able to build walls in the old game. Not 100% sure on that, but I don't think they ever used to be able to build them at all. Now they have to wait until Age 4, which isn't a bonus. It's obviously a disadvantage. But their main civilization bonus is that they do not need to build houses. They always have 200 population, which means that you never get housed, which is good. And it means that your wood early on can be used elsewhere. So thank you for listening. If you've made it this far into the video, thank you very much. If you did enjoy this video, then please do like, please do comment, please do subscribe. It will help me very much. Thanks very much for listening, and I hope to see you on the next one.